Orere kai mo tātou. Korore horo re hareruia ki a koe. E huanga mana matua tama wairua tapu me ngā e pono. Ke tatu mai no koutou wangani tēnei hui ngā mātou. Hei tātari i ngā kupu katoa. E whakapuakena ana e mātou i roto i te koutou kororetanga. Ko koutou nei hoki te tīmatanga me te whakaotinga o ngā mea katoa. Mā unu hoki te māgai, hei tau toko mai aiania ake nei. Kia ora no tātou, kei te tūtonua hau ki te tautoko ngā mihi. Kua mihi ki a tātou, kua hui mai nei i runga te kaupapa i mui a tātou. Nō reira, e mihi tēnei ki a tātou. Aha koa, he uri a hau o tūkairangi. Hei aha mō te ata nei, kia mau a hau, e te pōtai o te Independent Chair. He kupu pōhehe tēnei mō tātou te iwi Māori, Independent. Engari, ki rapu ai ki taku taha Pākehā, pai tēnā kupu. Hoi anō, kei te mihi tēnei ki a tātou. Huri no tō tātou wharenei, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Kia ora, everyone, and just I was just saying that although I'm a uri of ngai tūkairangi, I'm wearing the chair of the hat of the Independent Chair, and word independent in the Māori language is a bit confusing, but to help reconcile it, I've looked to my Pākehā side, and it's all good. Hoi anō, e mihi tēnei kia tātou. Just a few housekeeping matters, and just a reminder of those observers. So this is a meeting of a standing committee of council, and the members are around the table here. There is a open forum, and meetings of council are open for observance and attendance. When we are into the business of the committee and the discussions, they are for the members of the standing committee. The other thing is that I hope you're all sitting with your good sides of your faces to the camera, because our council meetings are live streamed. Kia ora tātou. So it's going to run through the agenda. Apologies. I have apologies for lateness from Commissioner Anne Tolley. She'll be here later. Kei konei a buddy, so I'll take that one out. Apologies for non-attendance, Stephen Selwood and Martire Duncan. Won't give their apologies.
Just a mover and seconder.
Yeah. So can I call for mover?
I'll move, Chair.
Moved by Bill, seconder. Second Whitty. All in favour? Carried. Okay, public forum. We have no requests for speakers slot at the public forum or items for the public forum. I'll get used to this tikanga very soon, I suppose. There's a section for the chairperson's report, and this is my second meeting as the independent chair. And one of the things there's a couple of things that I wanted to note. I have had the privilege actually of sitting in on a couple of presentations and workshops that the Rangapu reps have been involved in, and I wanted to first of all acknowledge the work, the heavy workload of the Rangapu and all of the issues that Māori, hapu and hapori Māori are having to deal with, you've got my huge respect for the amount of work and the kaupapa that you carry. And just linking into one particular instance, I came across to do a whakatau for a workshop on Three Waters that was held over at the club. And one of the things that immediately struck me was about how much work is involved, not just in terms of the work that the Rangapu reps are doing, but at that strategic level, and the need for tangata whenua to be across things like the governance arrangements, etc. And what I saw, my observation was the need for, at the iwi governance level, because there are things happening there that it was certainly based on the comments that were made at the workshop that I attended, that Rangapu reps weren't aware of, and I think that's ensuring that that we're connected up seems to be one of the challenges that that we've got a lot of work, and that Three Waters is just one of those. It was pointed out to me that there's a discussion document out on local government reforms that has huge implications. I mean, I work for the government, used to reading screeds and screeds of papers, but I looked at that document and thought, hell, I need to take some annual leave to read the document. And that's just two instances of some massive challenges that tangata whenua have, who are generally under-resourced and don't have the capacity to deal with a lot of these things. That's my observations in just a few short weeks in this role. I did want to note that there have been a couple of changes in governance positions with some of our larger organisations. I'll just these just off the top of my head, probably others that I've missed, but Ngāti Ranginui, Charlie Rahiri, now the elected chair of Ngāti Ranginui, the Mangatawa Incorporation, Neil Takani is now been elected chair. There are probably others, but there's a changing of in some of our large Māori hapu whānau landowner organisations that are quite significant. Just talking about changes, Irene Walker, as you may be aware, has stepped down, and Destiny Leaf has been elected as member of the committee in her place. Ngā mihi nui ki a koe e te tuahine. Nau mai hara mai wanganui a tātou. Other about to be changes is Mererina Murray. We all know Mererina. I don't know if I'm going to get the years right. Mererina, where are you? I think it's Friday of next week is your last day after 31 years with the council, and Mererina is a very well-known face and loved face around Tauranga Moana, and so mihi tēnei kia koe, Mererina. I'll make a special effort to get back from Tairāwhiti tomorrow night to attend your dinner or your function or your poroporo ake koe ana. Mihi tēnei kia koe. So that's my very quick observation. I think, I feel a bit underwhelming. Feels a bit underwhelming because I'm observing the amount of work that the Rangapu reps are having to shoulder. And it's really struck me, especially coming when I work for a well-resourced. We don't think we're well-resourced, but I work for a well-resourced government department. So e mihi tēnei kia koutou. So that's my my verbal report. Can I just ask if there are any questions or comments?
Just a comment. Thank you for that report. That's probably no disrespect to previous chair and uncle, but that's quite a good report as far as I'm concerned, and letting commissioners know what's happening with some of our leadership positions in others.
Kia ora, Whiti. If there are sorry, Shane.
Just one comment as well. The Commission does have a paper coming to us on Monday for a council meeting. Charlie Rahiri's been appointed to the Tourism Day Planning Board as well, so just wanted to acknowledge that. and just make sure that whānau were aware.
Good, Shan. Thanks for that. If there are no other questions, comments, then I'd like to call for a mover. That chairman's moved by Whitty, seconded by Shan.
Which is also to just
Right.
acknowledge that appointment.
So, now, the other thing that I need to make a recommendation to the committee, and it is as follows, that the Tangata Whenua Tauranga City Council Committee receives the chairperson's verbal report. In favour? Aye. B, endorses the appointment of Destiny Leaf as a member of the, as the Te Rangapu representative member of the committee. Chat. Aye. And endorses
Thanks, Ari.
the thanks for Irene Walker, and endorses and records thanks to Irene Walker for her years of service on the committee. Right. All in favour? Against? Ka pai.
Just one thing to note, Mr. Chair, I understand Irene would have been here but for the tangi at Tangata.
Yeah.
So I wonder if it would be appropriate to note in the minutes just her apologies on that basis, not that she's a member anymore, but I think she would have been here, you know, for this last school year for the tangi.
Ka pai. Ka pai. Kāna. Acceptance of any late items. Is there any call for any late items? Ka pai. Number 6, no confidential business, no changes to the order of business. Now, when are we going to do the presentation? Is it now?
After the minutes, and then, yeah,
After the minutes?
yeah, we'll just confirm the minutes,
Okay.
and then we can go straight into.
Right. Sorry, I just needed to check my, that I've got the order right. We'll just move through the confirmation of the minutes. Now, we've got 2 sets of minutes in the pack. One is the set of minutes for the tauranga for the meeting held on the 23rd of June 2021. Now, I wasn't obviously at that meeting, but I just want to check if moved by Bill, those minutes are accepted as correct.
One of us, we don't have those minutes from the 21st of...
Yeah, got the 24th of August 22. Yeah.
They are
Yeah,
on...
they're on the they're on an electronic
Yeah,
copy.
the electronic copy on Stella's there, but not
Not
here.
on.
Okay, well, I think we're going to need to defer that to the next meeting.
So that's for, so which, can we confirm?
Last year's one.
That's the 23rd of June.
Confirmed 24th of August.
Well, thanks for pointing that out, Chad. I've been reading off my electronic copy. So we're just going to defer that because you don't have those minutes in front of you. So we'll defer that to the next meeting. But do you have the minutes of the meeting of the 24th of August? So can I ask if there are any corrections to those minutes? If not, then call for someone to move that they be accepted. Moved by Nathan, seconded by Whitty. All in favour?
Aye.
Confirmed. Are there any declarations of conflict to be noted? None. There are, now, this is where we're going to move to the informal session.
We'll just, yep, move straight to the presentation.
Rightio, ka pai. I'll get this whānau by the next meeting, hopefully. So we're now going to hand over to, this is the part of the our meeting where we hand over to Hau Kainga o Hapu for their presentation, and I'm going to pass over to, this is a joint presentation by Nāreta Timu, Lady Alice and Rātahi Cross. Kaya koutou.
Tuatai nui a sa o tanatina o mai tūkairangi whakae mai kia tuahau I tēnei wā. Tēnei wā. Rātahi, put your wristwatch on. He threatened to go and get his pillow and I said, I want you to speak. We are no mai ana te tīmata I te karakia, kare kore, ko tīmata wa mahi ke koutou I tērā, engari tūtawa mai runga, tūtawa mai ruto, tūtawa mai roto, tūtawa mai waho, tūtawa mai raro. Kia tau ai te mauri tū te mauri ora, I runga I a tātou katoa, pa rutoi mai nei tēnei haumi e hui e tai. Ko ngāre ka tunu tōku ingoa, he uri a hau o ngai tūkairangi. Ai, ara ai tahi atu o haku, engari I tēnei rā, kei te tū a hau, hei uri o ngai tūkairangi. I'm starting because I'm meant to be at the Reo Committee meeting for Mātā's Waka, which is at Hotel Armitage, because the tangi is on at Maunga Tapu. But this kaupapa was so important to me. I was brought up, I can talk in English and go fast. We are no. Ko taku kaupapa, mai rā no has been the Reo. And in that space, I have always mixed with kaumātua. I know waiapa. I know what Uncle Kihi sang on the marae. I know all the waiapas that he sang. I know the titles, I don't necessarily know every word. Hui anō, I know and mixed with and was a part of the whānau of Whareroa and of Ngāti Tapu as I grew up as a child. This marae was not here. It was put up katu I roto I ngā tau in the late 60s, in that 50-60 area. So as a child, I ran around down at Whareroa. I made te tupuna tapuiti, ka puta ko tūkairangi, ko taungatangi, ko taiki, ko tapuraka. Ko ngā uri o tapuraka, ko ngai tūkairangi ki hunga toro a tērā, ko ngai tūkairangi ki Whareroa tērā. I wish to make it very, very clear that I'm a little concerned about, not about anybody else's interests, but definitely the interests of ngai tūkairangi. In my childhood, I was always ngai tūkairangi. So were the 14 brothers and sisters of my father. Whareroa was tūkairangi, and Waikari was Ngāti Tapu. So that is what I experienced as I'm over 70. My father died when he was 85. Uncle Kihi and my father are related. My father was the first cousin to Uncle Kihi's mother. I wanted to emphasize today as a person who mixed with those elders that at no time did I ever hear any other hapu name except Ngai Tūkairangi on these maraes. I think once I may have heard one other in my time, but it was never ever, I think Uncle Paul made a comment to me at one stage. But I want to emphasize that I'm Tūkairangi, I belong to Whareroa Marae, and I belong to this marae here as Tūkairangi. That I'm not really, I regard Mount Maunganui as, I regard Ngai Tūkairangi as kaitiaki of this place. There are a lot of histories and a lot of other hapu histories, but you can look at the whole of the Bay of Plenty and wherever, but we're here, Ngāi Tūkaira. In the work that I've done in the past, when I did a master's and looked at Archdeacon Brown's journals, Tūkairangi, tupuna are named and are mentioned in Archdeacon Brown's journals, and that was, every day recording that Archdeacon Brown did. So I saw some of my tupuna's names in there. In the signing of the treaty, large numbers, which was at the Mission House, at Maha, because that is also a concern to me, as Ngāi Tūkairangi. There are a number that were Ngāi Tūkairangi. There are a number of those signatories of the treaty that were Tūkairangi, because they were over there. Even though in 1828, many of us left and came here to this area, but, that's your kāinga. You do want to go back. You never forget. It doesn't matter where you end up, you never forget your kāinga. And I know, the records show, there's a good number of Tūkairangi people who signed the treaty because it was over there. I also want to mention, my husband did some research on the First World War, Matapihi people in the First World War, and a number of Ngātais were in their First World War. They all record their address as Otu Moitai, as Otu Moitai. So there's three things that I've seen in my, I have a master's degree and I'm currently doing another one in Te Reo Māori. So I've been able to do a little bit of research, not as much as my cousin over here, as Buddy, kia ora, Buddy, whom I went to school with. And fully respect for the work that he does. Just, I'm frightened he'll probably come and correct me after. But I'm talking about lived experience here. I'm not talking about just research. I'm talking about a number of things that tell me that Ngāi Tūkairangi has mana. Over here, right up to that mountain and probably to the top of it. Because Hau o te rangi, I am told by somebody, and again, these historians can correct me, was the last chief that lived on Moa. Well, that was my father's name, Hau o te rangi. That was my father's name. And so I just want to mention those things and to say, as a kuia, I've been following kaumātua for 50 years and hearing the same story. 50 years, when I went to university, I was 19, and I realized when I met my husband, who was a fluent speaker of Māori, you've dropped the ball now, so you need to turn to the te ao Māori. And so I did. I'd had the whanangatanga and whānau here, but I didn't have the reo. And that, so I chased it all the time, and in that space, I was with elders a lot of the time. Even my elders from Ngāi Tamarawaho, my elders from over there at Ngāti Hangarau, because I definitely belong in those places. Hairini Ngāi Te Ahi, but today I'm here on the platform of being an uri of Ngāi Tūkairangi, of living in Ngāi Tūkairangi territory, and I want to emphasise that to whoever. I have been to Whareroa to say this. I have been to Whareroa to say this. And I know we have other kuia that might speak and elders, but whenua noiho. I can see Ratahi twitching. Ngā mihi nui. I tautoko Anthony's kōrero that those that Māori and Pakeke and elders have so much, and you people, we have so much on us. I am a pautikanga relieving at the hospital. I am a member of Atawhai, a non-violence, fighting violence group. I'm doing a Masters in Te Reo. I manage a climate change project focused on Matapihi. I manage Te Pai Neke Neke o Matapihi to strengthen the speaking benches of Matapihi, because we lost Uncle Kihi, Tūkairangi, Bill Hiamoe, Wiremu Bill Hiamoe from Ngāti Tapu, and Tūkairangi, and Brian Dixon, my brother, who was CEO of Ngaitarangi for 20 years. And so, Rata, he's getting up now, so haramai Rata. Ngā mihi ne kia koutou katoa. Each of the people that are going to speak, they can write a thesis for you. But this is my moment. I've got to go to this other committee where there are iwi reps from Mātātua Waka, but this was so important. Ngā mihi nui kia koutou katoa. Thank you, Anthony. Good seeing you, waiata, but I won't do. My shoes in here. Thank you, Rātahi.
Kia ora tātou, ko Rātahi Cross tōku ingoa, te teo mana o Nai Tūkaera. First of all, things change when your queer Pakeke decide they want to have something to say. And they get to have the floor as long as they want, because they've heard that floor over many years, and us as Māori understand that. They can talk for as long as they, she could have had the whole hour, and we will acquiesce to her desire to speak. It is a right of our Pakeke. So, first of all, I want to talk about the tenacity of Nai Tūkairani and how it arrived. And so, just briefly going to go over some historical stuff for you to actually understand. So this is the whakapapa that we principally use to establish the mana of Tūkairani. It is from elders to Tūkairani. And although Tapuiti was not the eldest, he was the surviving son of Te Rangihauri. Tūkairani is the grandson of Te Rangihauri. Now this is important to understand, because in the Bay of Plenty we suffered a huge loss in a battle many, many years ago. In fact, 370 years ago. And we fled the Bay of Plenty, so you'll get the picture as we get along further. We fled the Bay of Plenty and we went to our cousins in Gisborne, because we have a secret up our sleeve that isn't Mātātua. The secret is our whakapapa to whāini of Tauranga Moana. So we fled to our relatives, Iranui, the brother, and sister Iranui and Kahununu in the south. And after the war, that nearly wiped our iwi out. So Rongo mai Nohorangi fled with his sons Te Rangihauri, Tamapāhori and a few others, and they headed off down into Gisborne. The trails are secret to us, but we know them well even today. And then we journeyed back as we got stronger. Our great cousin who gave us shelter, his name was Wahoatarangi. He was of the Hauiti Whakapapa, but he is also of the Kahununu family. And there's the reason for us running south. So we then became strong enough and we tracked back to our homeland. And on that way back, we went through the areas that we had cousins to. So we went through the east coast, where Iranui and her children resided. Now it's very, very important to understand that Iranui and her husband Hingangaro are the parents of Taua Ariki, the father of Whanau Apanui. Ngāti Porou, his brother, Mahaki Ewe Karo, again the father of Ngāti Porou. You can see our trail home was through friendly territory. And then we also travelled on into the Bay of Plenty, back into our homeland. We didn't go to this area and conquer it. We returned home after being beaten and bedraggled. The whakapapa of Tūkairani begins here, in Tauranga Moana. Unfortunately, on our arrival back here, our king didn't quite like us coming home, and so we ended up in strife again. And we took back the gift lands that were given to us by our tipuna whāine, by force. But it wasn't a conquer of an itinerant iwi, it was a returning home of our people. And that's important to understand. And I just want to clarify that you can actually see through this whole journey, the full 60, something just as to pass, to give you some passing knowledge, is that we've returned exactly back to Tūranga and bought land there. Now we're providing sustenance to the people that actually sheltered us 354 years ago, which is an amazing full circle. So as we travelled up there, we made home back in Tauranga Moana. Now what's important is that we've had to re-establish our strengths and grow as a people. And so we slowly re-established our relationships here by, intermarriage. There wasn't that much conquest. There was one good fight, and then there was a lot of, hey, here's my daughter, here's your son, let's make this all good again. And a lot of that happened, especially between Naitarangi and our cousins at Ngāti Marama. It's a very, very good relationship that was rebuilt there. In respect to what happened many, many years after, my own great-great-grandfather, Kōrero I, was a chief of Ngāi Kairaki. He was also paramount chief of Te Papa during the battle in the 1820s, and where our people once again were decimated and driven away, some going north to our cousins at Ngāi Tamarawaho, some coming across, the majority of them coming across the harbour to Matapihi. But we lost hundreds of our family in that devastation by the Hauraki people, specifically Ngāti Maru. Now, in that battle, we're not talking a small village getting wiped out. We're talking, you all know how many bodies lie at Te Papa. That's my family that lie at Te Papa. That's my family that lie there. From my great-great-grandfather, Kōrero, still lies there today. And so it's very, very important. That mamae has been a very, very big mamae to us. I understand the kōrero of other hapu, kei a koutou, that's their kōrero. I am giving you the kōrero of the whakapapa of my own tūpuna, who was the last chief at Te Papa. That's too well documented. Now, so it's important to understand it. We were devastated. We came over to Matapihi. Now today, we are the biggest Māori business entity on the eastern seaboard of the North Island. This is Tūkairangi. Tūkairangi is the biggest single employer through its investments of people in Tauranga Moana in the city environments. We employ up to 4,500 people through our subsidiaries like Sika in the kiwifruit industry. We are the largest business entity after the port inside Tauranga City Council region. The Matapihi orchards here are inside the business area and environs of Tauranga City. Yet Tauranga doesn't know us. We account on our own right for $300 million of business in Tauranga. That's the value of our business. So we're very, very quiet about what we do. And Lily will go on further about some of the expectations we have of the council, because we've had no support from the council. We've done it ourselves, which is the way we do things. That's not a slight on the council. We've just got on with our business. And in that is that we've focused on businesses. We have orchards and horticultural ventures from Hauhora in the far north, Kirikiri, to Katikati, Tauranga Moana, the mount specifically here, to Paingaroa and Te Puke, to Opotiki through our subsidiary Sika. We are developments in Raukokore and Te Kaha. We have bought into developments of horticulture in Gisborne. We are the largest exporter of persimmons in New Zealand, and out of our investments in Gisborne, and we're the largest orchardist in Hastings. So we have up to $150 million of investments in Hastings. So we have significant investments across the eastern seaboard of the North Island. We centre our income here in Tauranga City, and that's important to note. So with that, we now have earned enough experience, economic base for us now to focus on home. And home to us is all the environs of Tūkairangi. And in that influence is Tūkairangi, Ngāti Tapu, our own cousins of Ngāti Kuku, our families who are closely connected to us in Ngāti here. And so now our focus of our great eye is now on Tauranga Moana. And that's important that you understand that. So next year, we are repurposing some of our buildings in Tauranga Moana back to a marae, and we'll be opening our own marae at Te Papa next year. It will be in the central business district on land that we own. And that's important to understand it. Stuff that has gone on between council, government and other hapu is all right, that's their business. But this is the future for Ngāi Tū Kairangi. Ngāi Tū Kairangi and Ngāi Te Rangi will be back at Te Papa next year. Kia ora tātou.
Wow, okay, right.
Just before you do, I understand that there are some, at the start of the presentation, some references to last year's presentation. So I've taken the liberty of taking a few copies, that I've got 6, 7, in case you need to refer, or if we need one for us. So this is the presentation that was made on the 14th of October 2021. And some of, as I understand, some of what Lily's going to refer to relates back to this presentation. So just in case you need to go back to that. Aroha mai, Lily.
Kia ora tātou, ko Riri Alice Ahau, kōku tipona, ko Riri Te Kani tōku kuia, ko Steve Emrys Alice tōku pāpā, no konei ahau, hoi anō ka tipu ahau, o ka noa te whānau tauwhao, nā te tapu, me te mōtere o matakana hoki. So, nā mihi kia koutou. So, we didn't really know you were coming, so we've done a really good job pulling together some of the key messages that we wanted to pass on to you today. Nari to those of you that know her, is very passionate about Ngāi Tūkarangi, very passionate about Matapi, very passionate about Ngāti Tapu, very passionate about whariroa, very passionate about the injustices that she sees are on the back of her doorstep constantly, and very passionate about te reo and tikanga. You will see her in those areas constantly because that's what she loves. With Ratahi, again, he lit the platform around who we are. He talked a little bit about some of the land trust interests that we have. So some of the commissioners who may not know the difference, you might have thought that we are all one entity, and we are, from the point of view that we all whakapapa from Ngāi Tūkarangi down, but from the structural side of the organisations, we have our land trusts. Ongare Trust, our kuia auntie Kura at the back, is also part of the Ngāi Tūkarangi estate, if you'd like to call it that. But when we talk about the relationship that we have with the council at this point in time, it is with the entity that calls itself the Ngāi Tūkarangi Hapu Trust, that derives from the Ngāi Te Rangi Runanga, and through that relationship that's been forged through the INCSOC, the whakapapa that's there, and why I'm bringing that up is because that particular relationship has a different relationship with the council at this point in time. I'm not saying it's the only one, because in the context of everything that we live in today, all of it is merging. All of it is merging with some of the land trusts are saying that we are hapu as well. They are bringing together their energy so that there is no differentiation between the two, and the mana whakahaere that goes through them is a combined voice that comes to the table to say we all need a say in what's going on in our future. And why that's important is because the governor's been doing a little bit of stuff that has been disenfranchising some of us from voice, and the regulations that are floating through the three waters and so on and so forth are creating a different set of injustices that are people looking in from the outside are not that happy with. So Ngāi Tūkarangi is trying to form a bigger collective of all of our interests, which will come to the table to talk more next year. One of the briefs that I got from our Hapu trustees is to reiterate some of the projects that were done and talked about last year around this time. So in October 2021, the standing committee, and I'm not sure if the commissioners were on that group, came here and Anaru presented some of the high priority projects that we were leading to in that time. Why we're doing that and revisiting that is there is a question that's asked about where have you got to in that work. So I want to leave that for you to percolate while we go and revisit some of those, because we'll end with a summary about the 3 points and ask the question of have we got far enough in those, and if we haven't, what are we going to do about them. Before we go into that though, I just wonder if I missed a picture. No, I'll go back to that in a sec. Anaru put this before you to really think about the position that Matapihi Ngāi Tukarangi have got in the urban setting that we now face ourselves in. We're like the place that everyone comes to put things through, like pipelines and roads and railways and stuff like that. We found ourselves in a precarious position where they go, oh, those Maoris won't mind, there's not much going over on that green space. We'll just like interrupt their peace and put some new crap through their area. Literally. We say that because all of the other places that are there, the $1 billion properties down the mount, no one wants to unsettle a rich Pākehā. The reason they don't want to do that is because they've got money to take you all to court. The thing that we want to impress again today is some of us Maoris also have money to take you to court as well. So we're in a different terrain where we want to lift up the expectation that we don't want to be the last bastion for Tauranga's development that's coming through. Papamora's got the other stuff going right down the end, but we don't want to be that inner city community that is left as an afterthought when things need to be positioned for the rest of the community. So I'll leave that there because that is the position that Anaru started the corridor with last year. Here's some pictures I just want to share with you. They give a little bit of the imprint about who Ngāi Tukarangi is and some of the experiences that we've had. And I did that all this morning before we came down. So, you know, here, this is our Uncle Willie. This is Auntie Kura's kuia. There's Turi there. This is unveiling the plaque at Otamataha in 1964 as part of the commemorations around Pukahinahina. Over here, Awhina Thatcher shared a historical map around Mawao. Mawao is significant to us. Hukapak and all of the leaders of that time that are down involved with kiwi fruit throughout our region and some of the people with Kunilese Morgan, very significant imprint that they've made on the leadership expectations of us. They're important to us. The area down in Mount Maunganui with the industrial challenges, and I put that frontly because there is a part in there around whareroa that we need to revisit to see where we've got on that. This is an interesting picture that we did with our treaty settlements, and this is around those fuel farms. So one of our clever artists, Uri, put together pictures that positioned our embryos within that picture to give the essence of contrivia. I put that right in the centre because we've got some interesting dynamics going on in our inland hapu at the moment. Over here, and our iwi, just leave that there for you to think about. Here is a contribution that we put in a significant document called Whenua Pūmautanga that was led by Uncle Hawata around all the significance for Ngāi Tarangi and for us, particular for Ngāi Tukarangi and Ngāti Tapu. There was a page there around our relationship to Otamataha. Just reiterating the little bit of the theme going on there. I'm sure Nathan's enjoying this part. Mount and also the Rec Reserve. Why this is significant is I want to show all of you here, when we talk about the Mawao Rec Reserve, who were the hapu that were there. It's Ngāi Tukarangi. Very clear for all of you to see. That is the only remaining part of the maunga that hasn't been repatriated to who it should be, and that area belongs to us.
You should have said we would want it back.
Oh yeah, that's coming later. Yeah. So I need to just emphasise some of those projects because they were pretty chunky ones, and there's been some progress and there hasn't. So from last year, Ngāti Tapu and Ngāi Tukarangi together put up the discussion about Southern Pipeline. Many of you recall it burst sometime last year. It was a mess. There's a working group that's been put together and there's been some progress. So I'm not here to harp on that one. There's a tick towards the end of it about the establishment of the working group. But the core matters that relate to it, around connection, around papakainga, around all of those things, around those smelly things that come off it, that's still untended to. That needs to be put up in the agenda for you to think about. The whareroa action plan, I didn't put the detail in this, but I've left it as it is because its expectation about what we should be working on is still there as it should be. So the notes in there are very clear in the presentation that you have now. Just want to put it back up there for your attention so we can get some movement on that as well. As well, our Matapehi community plan / land use plan / spatial plan, whatever plan it is, also needs to be progressed, and at the end of this meeting, we will have some expectation that we work together to get some resourcing on that moving forward. There are some other factors in there that are around medium and long-term action plans, but I think they're in there. I won't go through those or skip past them, but they are there for you to review them as well. Just going over this again because it's just important for you to get the detail around there, and I wasn't part of this, but the key point I think was to think about how significant the impacts are to Whareroa and circling what they're calling a priority area to do something extraordinarily important in that place. As well, there was the discussion about changing the zone there in the priority area. A dedicated plan, I'm not sure how that's going now, but if it hasn't been going, it should be. And also identifying an alternative area for future industrial zone discussion. So this is what the Hapu trustees from last year put together. But let's just take a pause again to say that it's still important to a big significant part of our hapu down in Whareroa, and everybody here knows why. Back to Matapihi again, and I don't want anyone in this room to think, oh well, it's just Whareroa and Matapihi. That isn't the case. I was thinking about a couple of messages that I want to make sure that everyone gets, and it pretty much is two things. One is that we are all ferociously protective about the remaining land that we have here, whether it's down Mawao, whether it's over at Te Papa, whether it's Otamataha, whether it's Whareroa here, or wherever our landscape is and our imprint is. We are extraordinarily protective about making sure that you know who we are. That's the first one. The other one is we are also very keen to repatriate imprints that you think that we might not have in areas that you have jurisdiction over. I'm saying that purposely with the Te Papa and part of the areas such as Otamataha and a little bit out further, we have a connection over by the sort of Pori area as well. So, okay, we've been making lots of money, that's already cool, but when we talk about the benefit for all of our hapu, regardless of whether you're associated with that particular trust, because we have a few, our story today is that we have a bigger area, we want to reconnect with that in the framework that the councils have. Now, the other part about why that's important is somehow people think that you guys give us mana. And I'm just going to labour that for a little bit, because somehow in the world people think that if you have a relationship with the council, all of the stuff you put on the paper automatically translates to something like you have mana, and therefore that is how it is. I'm just putting that there for a moment because it's not a truth. Just because you have a relationship with some loud, noisy hapu that's managed to get some stuff from you because you fellas feel sorry for them, or you've made some deal with them in some corner of a room by yourselves with them at the detriment of other hapu, doesn't make it right. So I'm just going to leave that there for a second for you to think about. So back to Matapihi, why it's really important to think about this is we don't want to be that group that you always come through. You know, we're hearing someone wants to change the railway to a new road to make it easier for people to come through. The bike people, not only do they just come through, they actually go on private property. Some of it is because some flash architect put up a plan through the council, publicised it, and then everyone started using it. You know, those are the kind of traumatic matters that we have to deal with, that we're saying that we're going to start addressing those more proactively next year. So back to Matapihi, why we're talking about this is we do want to impress the importance of us getting a community plan together, whether it's a spatial plan, and I'm saying spatial plan because of the hui last week we had here. The language used by your very learned staff was spatial plan, but it's a strategic plan. Is it a land use plan? The point is we want to work on that with the council to make sure that the resourcing that you have available we can utilise, because we're not built up like the inner city areas, and we need to make sure that all of our green rural space is protective and done in a proactive fashion that we want to do. This one here talks just briefly about future projects. So again, that language, that's your guys' language. We heard it last week. We're still learning what that means. We heard that the central government is the one that made up the word, brought it down, you guys tapped into it, now we have to adhere to it. We're not opposed to it as long as we can get benefit from it. As long as it's as long as it's of benefit to all of our whānau and we can get gains out of it in real meaningful ways like housing and stuff like that, or the kura happens, it can get some more land for their expansion or something like that, we're definitely supportive of it. And some of the things that they've put in there are, renaming streets to original names. Sorry, where I've gone a little bit off key here, this is in reference to the Mount one. So we understand Otamoto's got one, we understand there's going to be one in Te Papa, there's one down Papamoa, the Mount, we'd like to be involved in that, and we also want to put forward the idea that we do one for Matapi as well. So there are some of the things that they can do there, and we would like to be involved with those. So I'll leave those again for you to revisit and think about. And probably what's missing from here is where reserves or land is that's part of the treaty settlement that can be utilised in a great way. We're up for that. And the other one is where there are reserves that yous don't have ideas about that we would like to use. We're up for that as well. This is the second to last slide. But we want to reinitiate some further discussions about things that haven't been underway. Part of the not underway part has been because, unfortunately, we've been waiting for our iwi runanga to decide what they're up to. It's taken too long, it's taken 8 or 9 years. We've had enough. And why we say that is because there's some areas that they're meant to lead, and there's been conversations now where that presumption that they're leading, we're taking off them and saying that we're going to now do it from a hapu perspective. This is where the Mawa Recreation Reserve story started. So back in 2010, I think it was, we initiated some discussions with TCC that we'd like to repercolate and get that re-going. We'd also like to think and talk about where there are other specific agreements in place with land that involves Ngaitirangi and Ngāti Ranginui that relate to some of the council properties. We'd like to talk about that as well. Those are the ones that we already have agreements in place. We'd like to share those more formally in a conducive environment where we can, chat amongst each other. These ones here as well we'd like to talk about. The site down the Mount was an interesting, potentially lost opportunity where Zespri was right next door. We could have done that better. I thought we could have done that better because when it was looked through with TCC's eyes, forgot that there were other partners around and we could have made better outcomes from that project. So it can still be rescued, but it could have been done a little bit better. A couple of, this one here, I just want to, quickly these are the last three things. This one here about marae and connectivity, we need to have a conversation about that. Why digital connectivity? Because you all know that rural connection is pretty bad. Out here we don't have a standardised connection with Wi-Fi, and we just need to see if there's any way that we could get support on that. And I say that from an absolutely personal point of view because we don't have Wi-Fi here in the Papakainga, and I know that there's a project nationally that's been done around getting better connectivity to rural communities. This one here, that's an obvious one. We've been inundated with RMA issues and we'd like to see whether we can not just work together but see if there's policy approaches that we can do that can bring some of our rangatahi on board. Because we've got the same people doing the same things, and the reality it's not getting done. This one here, resourcing and then starting a proactive planning process. So that's the last slide really, except to say in summary, Last year we presented those 2 issues to use. You know, it's a question to use. How have you gone? What have you been doing? Same one with the Matapihi Community Plan, but I'm giving you guys a star here. Yeah, so I couldn't do a star, so I did a tick. Yeah, because I think about 2 weeks ago, you guys signed off on the MOU. Yeah. Anyway, the bulk of that is about revisiting the past, and in that context, our new logo that you might have seen at the start talks about that. It talks about, I think it's Inamata and Atamata was about the past and the future.
So,
That's everything.
in parting, I just want to, because you're going to have to understand that there's been some changes as well within Ngāi Kairangi. The new chairman of the hapu is ready. She has taken over from Anadu, so she'll be in direct contact with you guys. And as well as that, we have now got a close partnership between the business entities of Ngāi Kairangi and our hapu, and that will grow stronger and stronger from the sense that that's how we responded to. E te tiomana, thank you for the time to present to you. We have gone over time, but as I said earlier, Nani Nāreta, she gets right.
Yeah, I added her time of about 15 minutes, so we did perfect.
To my cousins across there, Nathan, tēnā koe, Puhiraki, always good to see you. I'm glad you're healthy. I got a bit worried. Kia ora tātou.
Kia ora koutou. Thanks for that presentation. I'm now going to open to the committee members. Any questions that you have or comments? Whiti, kia ora.
First of all, great presentation from the 3 of us. I just have to say, from Ngāi perspective, it's sort of not alarming to me, but I'll say I'll have to report back to our leaders back there some concerns that you guys have got about the iwi. So that's good to know that I can actually take that back. So kia ora.
Kia ora tātou. Thank you, Eddie, for your presentation, and Rātahi, awesome. I won't say something that I don't know without, I think I pretty much know that everything that was presented, but it's now brought weird to me, and it's good that every now and then I'm brought up to date. Not only with the information, but with the things that are back here somewhere. Pui anō, I just want to comment on the iwi one, because I am still, by the way, a long-standing member, another one of these long things I've been on the Maitarangi Iwi board for over 20 years now. Pui anō, on that point about being able to manage our own things that the iwi still has control of, and I'm sure that's what you're referring to, that recently that has been brought to our table. Our new member for Ngāi Tūkarangi, Rātahi Cross, was present at our last meeting, and I'm sure Rātahi knew what the kōrero was. We are making some, it has been a concern of mine as well. There's been a few hapu, and I'm not going to say who, where, what, and whatever, but there have been some hapu within the Maitarangi iwi structure who are saying, let's get a move on. You're right. It's been, 8 years. Since 2014, we've been waiting that long. So, things are happening, are on the move in terms of getting finally getting our treaty settlement completed. And there will be a conscious move in the new year to get that process underway, and Rātahi knows about that, and he can report back to you the details. Kia ora. Kia ora tātou.
Kia ora. Any other? Shan?
Kia ora. Just wanted to bring you to your presentation. And like everybody, particularly the Tangata was aware of all the issues and the challenges that you guys face and have faced, particularly in this community. I suppose I just wanted to make a comment about one of the things that I've been aware of is that
with all the reforms and all the changes coming, we do need to be thinking more strategically about, and you guys are in terms of what you'll put forward, about those things that are important to us. So, your relationships with others, your relationship to the whenua, to the moana, and thinking long term. So, and I reflect on the likes of Uncle Turi and others, their foresight and their vision to amalgamate the blocks here for the benefit of everybody. Well, for the benefit of those that whakapapa and owners and shareholders into these blocks. So we do need to be thinking long term. Not council has these 10-year planning cycles which we review every 3 years, but we do need to be thinking 30, 50, 100 years out about the things that are important to us. And some are very good at reminding us, well, particularly council, of things that they've said in the past. And it's this kind of thing that you need to keep reminding us of about your long-term aspirations. Getting involved in there's a myriad of things going on for council across the region and also nationally. But one of the challenges, I think, for a lot of our whānau iwi and hapu is the resourcing and the capability to be able to participate in those systems, and to have that kind of bigger strategic view about what the future might look like. And that's the challenge, I think, for a lot of our iwi and hapu. Everywhere we've gone, we've kind of had those conversations about what does the future look like, what is our place in that, what are the things that are important to us, where are the opportunities, and how can we make a contribution, not just to our whānau, but actually to the community. I just wanted to make those comments that there are huge opportunities in front of us. The challenge, I think, is how we participate in those processes to make sure that you're positioned in the way that to take best use or make best use of those opportunities.
Bill.
Thanks, Chair. And just following on from that, and you've covered off or highlighted a number of matters in the presentation. It's just in terms of then where to from here, and I'm just thinking aloud in terms of that opportunity for more direct hapu TCC engagement. So as opposed to, we haven't got time to work through all of those issues now, and this may not be the appropriate forum for that. But I just think we need to capture in terms of what we do beyond this hui today in terms of the TCC and actually meeting with and having hui with the hapu and then discussing those range of issues and then what we're doing, what others are doing and what needs to be done. So I just wanted to put that on the table, Chair, that we capture that as an action. Sure. Because I had a look at the list of actions from last time, and Ruri has highlighted, some have been completed, some are outstanding, and probably, to be frank, some are maybe taking much longer than perhaps is desirable. So.
Yeah. And I wasn't at the meeting last time, but after reading the previous slides, I think it's a good place to start to review what was thought about then, how we're going from there, and then to put some other things in front of you on that basis.
The biggest thing to understand is that the pressure is not singling out any employee. It's the pressure of one organisation to another.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, it's not lost on us. We've just got a policy analyst that we've never had, so we've been able to sort of participate in submissions. We know the RMA ones are coming up towards the end of January, and none of us have read the documentation yet. So, and we're a not-for-profit entity with volunteer trustees. Imagine that as the picture of all of the hapu around the country. it is unlikely that we're going to make an imprint on that. So, you know, we're raising that up as there really needs some forward about how to resource those really tough issues for Hapu to actually get some meat around this.
As a major council client, you know, within the horticultural industry, we're probably the biggest client in Tauranga. We require some careful collaboration around Three Waters. We require some careful collaboration around how it affects multiple hapu within that arena, and those discussions we haven't seen at the moment.
Just to end, I just want to thank our whānau for coming, because we got elected on about 3 weeks ago and we haven't even had a hapu hui yet, so this is it. So, you know, all the support you've got Anthony calling out to us to come together, we really appreciate it.
Anthony, just for you, one more. I forgot to mention, just getting confirmation from you guys, I have been and felt like sometimes a lone rep, unless the Tukarangi rep or the Ngāti Kuku rep were there, sort of thing, about pushing about the industrial estate down at Whareroa and the new changes coming up. And they seem to be directed, the new changes, for the Māori community to have to move, you know, from that area. And so, like I said, I just needed some confirmation, which I got through your fellows' kōrero there, that I should still stay loud and proud about trying to get the whareroa, the estate moved, you know, or along those lines at Whareroa there, all the industrial estates. So.
I think the other thing we're trying to put there is most of the stuff we do is very reactionary. It's reactionary to the council.
Yeah.
It's reactionary to what's going on in the environment. We're hoping next year is less like that, and that instead of yelling at our opposition or colleagues across the table, there's more dialogue about how we can plan and do it better. Because in a post-COVID environment, it's not healthy to be stressing with each other. It just brings people out. So that's one of our goals.
Because I'm going with the attitude in there that in the Western world, when they talk about a redundancy and the ethos around it, it's always last on, first off. And so Whareroa was first there, so they should be the last ones to be asked to be moved from there. It should be all of the industrial estates around. Kia ora.
Kia ora, kia ora, kia ora anō koutou. I'm going to bring this part of the session to an end. Some of us have to be away by 1, and I'm just scared that we don't end up without a quorum. So, prapai. Right. We'll move through to just move through the agenda. Next item of business is 11.1.
Mr. Chair, there was one sort of a recommendation there asking if we could either confirm or even support resourcing around our Matapi plan. I think I saw in there. Just wondering if we're going to talk about that before we move on.
That's actually going to be picked up, among other things, as part of the working group that's been established with the council. So, item 11.1, appointment of a deputy chairperson of this committee.
Here if you want me to speak to it.
Yes, please. Coral.
Kia ora. Sorry. I think I'll just take the report as read, and there is a recommendation to appoint Commission Chair Anne Tolley as the Deputy Chairperson of this committee. It's kind of the tradition in the past. You don't have to stick to that tradition. There's some options in the paper for you. That I've set out. Again, a recommendation is that you've got a representative from the council and representative as an independent chair of Tangata Whenua. So I'll just leave that with you. Happy to answer any questions.
Just a comment from me through you, Mr. Chair. I'm actually in support of the recommendation number 2, just putting it out there, and so I'm happy with what you've got there. After conversation, if everybody's
I'll second
Mr. Chair, on the point of connection with education,
Yeah.
that's further discussion.
Okay, good. I'll move it.
To appoint Commission Chair
And Laurie as deputy chair. Any further discussion?
My comment is it's always been that, has been the tradition since 2002. I see no reason why we shouldn't change it. Support.
What's the Iwi again?
Okay. So no further discussion. All in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Against? Carried. Right. The item of business 11.2, Te Rangapu Mana Whenua o Tauranga Wana report. So Pohiraki is the deputy chair going to present that report.
Thank you. 5 minutes, Mr. Chair. Thank you. As the Chair says, because Materi is gives an apology, I will be presenting on behalf of the Rangapu. You all have your report there in front of you. I do not wish to read through it word by word. You could have done that by now. If you don't, do some speed reading now, catch up. But I would like to make a few comments. In terms of number one, I acknowledge to Irene for the work that she did on the standing committee. I believe she was there for a term and a bit. Yep, pity, about 4 years or so, and she was very vociferous, voiceful, and expressed her opinions a lot, and kept a lot of people on their toes. So, yeah, so acknowledge that she contributed a lot to this committee during her time. And I also welcome Destiny Nebel, now Whenua, there, who has replaced her. So on behalf of the Rangapu, which we've already done at our own meeting, but within this forum, kia ora, ki a koe, Destiny. Have fun and you know, the work begins. Kia ora. Number two, about our representation, I really want to say on behalf of Rangapu to thank the commissioners, the staff, and the Takawainga unit for supporting Te Rangapu during this time, and of course the Rangapu for taking on these opportunities to enable mana whenua to build our capacity and capability within our relationship moving forward, as we've done in the past, in the present, and moving forward. Okay, read the rest of it. Other comments on number 3 in terms of our, on page 2, on our AIPs, the Action and Investment Plan, we have been very busy. We have been inputting into a lot of all the different forums and projects that are going on throughout the city, and it augurs well for the fact that we are participating within the relationship between us and council in terms of keeping these things moving. Then I get to our that project on the Three Waters. We've had some hui. The last one we had at this Marae. We felt that that was a bit, we weren't that happy, from what I recall, we weren't too happy with the presentation that came from the Three Waters, from the official agency, because it was a bit confusing. I felt that there wasn't that connection, I felt, between, and that seemed to be the general opinion from us, between the government and iwi. And so we feel there still needs a lot more work there. There is a hui scheduled in Whakatane for Tuesday the 13th of December for the Mātātua Waka and Te Manawa o Ngā Wai engagement to provide updates on the Three Water transition, etc., and the work plan from the Department of Internal Affairs and so on. So we encourage people to go down there, and I think the message to me from Matiri was that the Rangapu might be organising a van to take those who want to go. So we'll be looking within our budget to take care of that. Okay?
Puhi, can I just add?
Sure.
Now,
Oh,
I understand that there's for the Takitimu Waka, there's one being arranged. I don't know if they've set a date for that.
Same day.
Same.
Is it?
Okay.
And that's that.
Yet to be confirmed.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
Takitimu Waka,
Yeah.
same day.
No, there's Takitimu's in the morning, Matatu's in the afternoon.
Oh, well done. Thank you.
Sorry.
No, that's
Got
fine,
on my-
that's
yeah.
fine. Finally, we've done our charter, we've signed it. I think it's gone through, or going through. Yes, big tick, triple tick.
Right on time for 30th of June.
Yeah, oh, of course, 2023. Whenua, it's done. Yeah, for small business. Over the page is pretty much just a reporting process in terms of the electoral legislation that will soon be taking place in the next round of local body elections, etc., and the mana whenua appointments. Those are the new appointments. You'll read the names there. We have a new administrator for Te Rangapu. That is done through Te Awanui Hukapak. And the important thing is number 5, the last one, our key priorities for the upcoming months, and probably take us through the end of this year in June, are those 4 items. Mutu taki kōrero he pātai.
Just on the first one, with Destiny coming on, we also made a decision to bring Mokoera on to attend these hui for our succession planning and stuff, you know, for some sort of succession planning. Yeah. Well, just put it there, and we made that decision.
Okay.
Because we have been talking about succession planning, and he seemed like a good candidate to bring on. The other one is at the Three Waters, and you're right, Pui, about the last one at Hunga. It was a bit disjointed, and Des, Heke and Donna bringing more info. and it was pretty important info for Mātātu hapu in Waka, because it seems like we may have to be fighting here. I see that with the other Mātātua people within our entity there, and going along where council looks like they're having 2 seats in their governance seat, we should be using the same argument of why Ngaitarangi should be having one of those 2 Mātātua seats. Because at the moment we'll be fighting it out with Ngāti Awa, Whānau Apanui, who are the other 2, and we are the biggest growing city in New Zealand. And like I said, the same reason why the City Council have asked for 2 seats within their governance role. So, and at the moment, Tauranga has got 1 guaranteed, and that's the Takitimu ki Tauranga, and we need 1 more, and we can only get that through the Mātātua, because the Three Waters governance is, for Māori anyway, is going along the lines of what Waka. And like I said, the Takitimu has 2, but 1 ki Taranaki ki Tauranga. Mātātua has 2. Tainui has 2 or 1, I can't remember. Yeah, but like I said, it's just a bit of a worry, and we've got to hook up with our Runanga leaders group. So yeah, and my other one on the mana whenua appointments, it also has just been put out as the positions on the municipal 30-year consent for the resource consent. I think some positions have been put out lately for positions on that resource consenting team for the next 30-year resource consent, because I saw in the emails there was some for those a administrator,
technical advisor on the on the resource consent team, eh?
As a part of the catchment management plan,
Yes.
work that's happening, the hapu in that area are working through, what resources they might need to support them in that project.
Yeah.
So it's draft at the moment, it
Yeah.
hasn't been confirmed.
Okay.
But
So there's room for a Tangata Whenua.
Well,
yeah, absolutely.
that's me.
That's,
Any other questions, Chad?
I'm happy to move.
Move.
I'll
Paul.
see him.
Seconded. Any discussion? All in favour? Carried. Where am I? 11.3, Tangata Whenua Presentation Updates Report. Carlo, is that over to you?
Kia ora tātou, e mihi ana kia koutou ngai tūkairangi o Ngāti Tapu hoki o te maraoi a Whenua tōroa. Tātou wai mai e te tau mai te whakakoro pāma i nei take. Nō rere e mihi ana. I'll just go through a few highlights in the report. We're getting quite used to having this table sort of getting updated, and there's probably a few questions that were raised in the presentation by the hapu that there'll be some updates that are part and parcel of in here. Just making our way through it from first page, and I'll just go through a few highlights and then happy to take on any questions from there. At Wairoa Marae, pretty pleased with recent progress there. Trying to balance up strategic progress, but also some progress on the ground that whānau can see and feel. So from the latter point of view, we have repurposed a noise wall from the Tauranga Eastern Link over to try and address some of the problems that they've been faced with the impact of the state highway just over their fence, and so that's currently been put up at the moment. It's making good progress. But also in the background, 2 MOUs are now in place with Ngāti Kahu. One is regarding the development of the last section of the cycleway. So it's pretty carefully being done with the landowners in that area and the hapu as well. And then also an MOU has been formed with regard to Pōtiriwhi to look at how council might utilise that whenua with I guess a lot of the discussion being around housing. But we're working very closely with the hapu in that space to progress that. In terms of coming through to updates on the presentation from last year, the MOU, as you've heard, has been signed with the Southern Pipeline Working Advisory Group, and I actually have here 2 executed copies, one for Ngāti Tapu and one for Ngai Tūkairangi, so I can perhaps I'm passing one to you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Ka pai.
And it's Josh and Hawata have been the representative from Ngāti Tapu.
I'll hold
So that's been good progress. I mean, it's been careful progress in that space, but to try and get terms of reference set up carefully. And as the Chair was saying earlier on, one of the aspects that is in there is to now devise a plan on how a community plan might be put in place. Just speaking to sort of the talk about spatial plans, I just don't want there to be confusion. TCC are doing spatial plans. They are local government language because they are being done. Tangata Whenua are being invited very early on in the piece to contribute to those spatial plans in whatever way they want to. So you don't have to adopt that talk, we have to, because we are doing a spatial plan. But if you have a community plan or land use plan or no plan or just want to put it in, you're being invited very early on in the piece to add those layers. And so over time, Te Papa Spatial Plan actually saw the cultural layer come in quite late in the piece. And Ocha Moitai, the invitation was quite early, but the engagement sort of has happened as it's developed. And the Mount Spatial Plan, that cultural layer is being sought if iwi and hapu want to contribute in at the very earliest point. So we're just trying to improve how that's going, and there has been some workshopping happen by iwi and hapu further out at Papamoa where they've decided to get ahead of that and do some planning of their own, so that if and when Papamoa or Wairākei or whatever it ends up getting called, spatial plan moves that way, they've already got a layer that they've had an unencumbered discussion on. So just to support you, Riri, there is that you don't feel you pressured to do a spatial plan. It's just that we are doing a spatial plan, so ours will be called a spatial plan to council only.
Excuse me, Carla, can I just jump in there for a sec? Just to let you know, really, that myself, Alva, and have met with Roy Mata and Paula over doing an iwi spatial plan. And I know I'm saying this with the problems you're thinking up to iwi, and because they were wanting us to do an iwi spatial plan with everybody at the table, and that's other iwi as well. And so as Naitarangi, we've decided to bring it back to the iwi and hopefully to the hapu, and then forward it from there, but it's still a draft thing in action.
With regards to other aspects, and I'm thinking back to what was on the slide there around that whareroa community plan, there's been ongoing discussions around, and it's been resourced by Regional Council and then supported by Tauranga City Council as well. There have been discussions with Paul Beverley and Phil Mitchell around how that 10-year exit plan might be facilitated. It has been very slow. For example, the last probably 6 to 9 months at the hapu in marae direction has been, we've got a lot on our plate with the port consents and other things in play, and so there hasn't been a lot of progress there because there's only limited resources at the hapu and marae end. What I would say is that invitation to participate in that has always been open to Ngāi Tūkarangi to be part of that, but has largely been led by Ngāti Kuku. So that might be worth having a chat if there's a new wave of enthusiasm to get in behind that. As you heard, we have focused on some of the other things to try and work through other issues that have been long-standing. So the Kaitiaki program there is working really well through Mani Ngātai. The improvement of the reserves and safety and pushing back on some of the undesirable activity there has been good. And the last hui that was held there was around the establishment of a emergency exit via the airport, and so we're due to go back there. We might get it done before Christmas with plans that incorporate the feedback from the whareroa community on that stuff. And then there is a line here around the Matapi community plan acknowledging that that's on the work program for the Southern Pipeline Advisory Group. There's a bit of stuff in here across a few different meetings around Papakainga. So we do have a Papakainga advisor in place, which is Tani Brock, and he's got active conversations with around 28 different trusts now. But being very careful to support them at whatever pace they want to express their aspirations for their blocks. It is looking like there are some natural clusters coming together, and we have had some meetings with the MHUD to seek some support. To be fair, the meeting with MHUD was pretty much a cookie cutter meeting. Thanks for letting us know what you're up to. Here's the places you can apply to, and we kind of said to them, that's not really working for us, and we think we're making more progress than that, and we've left them with a few opportunities to co-invest with us. The commissioners have put in place the development contributions grant. There's Tāne as a service, and we have had a lot of support and new and different kind of support from our planning department, who are providing a lot more information to help progress the decision making at land trust level around any geotechnical information we can give, any planning rules that we can advise on that might impact the way they might develop up concepts. definitely, I know Tāne is very keen for Matapihi land blocks to be part and parcel of that. At the moment, there's a cluster developed at Kaitimako, a cluster at Ranginui, a cluster at Ngāti Kahu, and a cluster at Hangarau. But Matapihi has some good planning rules already in place with papakainga zones that if and when the trusts are ready to have that discussion, we're certainly keen to do that. Whetū o te rangi, a lot of our efforts have been in trying to have a conversation with Western Bay. We do have a bit of a borderline challenge there, but we'll keep on chipping away there. And the others really are as read. So happy to take any questions.
Issue connection to that.
Some have been water supply and also some of that papakainga work as well. So there's different rules on different sides of the road, even though and the two blocks are sometimes different, but often the same trustees. So it can be pretty frustrating for whānau out there.
Any questions for Carla? Move that the report be accepted by Bill, seconder. Buddy, second by Buddy. No further discussion. All in favour? Aye. Carried. Right, now just about at the end of the agenda, there is one thing that I'd need recorded in the minutes, please, and is now recorded as an apology for non-attendance. There's no apology from Air New Zealand to accompanies that, so her flight was delayed, so she's apology now for non-attendance. Okay, we're now into any discussion on late items. There are no late items. Hoi anō, ko tai mai te wā mo te mutu mo tō tātou hui huinga, mihi tēnei kia o.
I should have signalled it earlier. It's not really a late item, but Commissioner Wosley and I had a conversation about how, the relationship between this group and back to council. And we had this discussion yesterday with the Waiari Kaitiaki Forum. And I suppose in a way trying to, would be useful to have that formal connection back. So whether the minutes or the reports can come through to council and for us to receive it, because Stephen, I know Stephen's on this committee as well, but it would be useful, I think, for us to be able to have these reports formally in front of council.
Right. What needs to happen to allow that to happen?
I would think we just request for Coral that an agenda item is put on the council agenda to table it, and then that way there's an opportunity if there's something that needs a decision, then it's tabled there and it can be raised. Yeah. And it might be just an agenda item timed in for when these meetings happen, the next council meeting it gets tabled in.
You can always put the minutes on. Some councils do put minutes of various standing committees back to the council, and we haven't had that habit, but that actually is a good way for it to come formally and be received, and then any actions or recommendations from those, and they get picked up. Yeah, so that would be a process way of doing it.
Cool.
Thank you.
So we'll pick that up as an action.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you might have caught the clue that probably same for Waiari.
Okay. Right. So that's time for that's all of the business to discuss. Ai me tō tātou karakia whakamutunga, tēnei rā te mihi kia kōtau, me mō te komiti nei, ana hoki kia kōtau ngā kaimahi o te kaunihera, hei tautoko ai te mahi o te komiti nei. Nō reira e tuku atu ki a koe puhiraki o tō tātou karakia whakamutunga.
I tō mātou ma te nui te rangi ki e tapu tō hingo. E pā e whakawhita ana mātou ki a koe. Mō tō manaakitanga ki a mātou. Ko huhu mai e rungi te paparu ngā white kōrero o Wanganui i a tātou. Ki a tātou katoa. Ki a te whai o tō tātou ariki a hui karaiti. Me te aroha o te atua. Me te whiwhinga tahitanga ki te waru o tapu. Ake. Amen.
Kia ora tātou.
Rangi Marika.